We're trying to teach these kids life lessons. Winning at all costs is not even that good for kids. Losing's okay. Learning to lose is good. Learning to bounce back is really good.
Today's guest is Kevin Barney, the Executive Director and General Manager of Massachusetts Youth Lacrosse, the first person in that role for the organization. Kevin's built youth sport programs, team culture, and community leadership as a coach, field manager, and a service leader.
If you ask her, hey, how many games did we win win or lose? What was our record that first year? She probably actually wouldn't even be able to tell you. She might think, I think we may have won one. I don't know. But if you ask her, hey, how many times did we go out for ice cream afterwards? She'll tell you 2. That kid's going to remember that moment for the rest of her life. Not exactly all the context around it, but that her dad went berserk at a game. Now, how much is that going to impact her or not, to be seen? But there's going to be some impact on like, hey, that's what I remember. And it might not be that negative to her, but it might be negative in how she grows up and interacts with others anytime something happens that's not exactly right. My dad wasn't like huge into sports, but I remember playing soccer and there were didn't have enough coaches. And I was like, Dad, you can do it. And I remember my dad being like, holy cow, I know nothing about this, but I'll do it. That still resonates with me today that he had no clue what he was doing. He stepped up and did it. And I remember that.
He was there. He was intentional. He was present. How did it make you feel?
Let's dab.
Welcome to the Dadera podcast, redefining what it means to be a dad, one story at a time. Today's guest is Kevin Barney, the Executive Director and General Manager of Massachusetts Youth Lacrosse, the first person in that role for the organization. Kevin's built youth sport programs, team culture, and community leadership as a coach, field manager, and a service leader. Kevin, thank you for joining us. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. Looking forward to talking with you.
Living the dream, right, baby? Living the dream.
Yeah.
All right, so let me know. So you came from a sports management and nonprofit background, right? So what first drew you to youth lacrosse and working with kids and families when you stepped into the executive director role at Mass Youth Lacrosse? What vision did you bring for fathers, families, and kids in your state?
Yeah, I was a sport management major in college, Springfield College, and wanted to work in sports my whole career and started off doing that. Worked in golf and worked for the Patriots and Revolution, so worked kind of in the higher level, worked for some nonprofits, then went and worked in Major League Lacrosse, but really was kind of more drawn to all the community youth programs and what they're trying to do to get kids to play. I've, loved all sports growing up and had that passion for it. And then just kind of got drawn to that of like, hey, how do we provide more opportunities for kids to play sports? How do we utilize sports to help kids become adults, with it? And started with Mass Youth Lacrosse about 8 years ago, working with them. And my goal then was, how do I make it easier for someone to volunteer? To be a coach, to be a town leader, to be a board member somewhere, because it's tough. Everyone's extremely busy these days, so we need more volunteers to help kids out, and it's not easy to do. So my role is really been, how do I make the organization run a little smoother? How do I support volunteers? And again, how do I make it easier for someone to volunteer so more kids can play and fall in love with playing sports?
Well, let me ask you, let's bring it back a little too. So what was it like for you growing up? What are the sports that you loved? How would you say, your relationship with your dad, was, you're so into it? Was it because he was into it and you replicated him, or maybe it's some brothers? Let's peel it back a bit. I'm curious.
Yeah. Not exactly sure where it started for me. My dad wasn't huge into sports. I think I dragged him into it, but I remember, playing soccer. And there were didn't have enough coaches. And I was like, Dad, you can do it. And I remember my dad being like, holy cow, I know nothing about this, but I'll do it. That still resonates with me today that he had no clue what he was doing. He'd say that. But he stepped up and did it. And I remember that, I remember those car rides being there. My dad's the coach. That's kind of to me was a cool thing as a kid. And again, I think I love sports more than him. I played the traditional, I played, baseball, basketball, soccer growing up, but just always had a love for, all sports and watching sports and, from the youth to professional, games growing up, and, always had a strong passion for my teams ever since I was a real little kid. So I think that kind of drove me towards that when I was, getting ready to look for colleges. No one, I still remember to this day telling my parents, like, I don't want to do that. I want to do sports. How do you do that? And I got lucky that my parents had actually lived in Springfield, Massachusetts before I was born, and they knew of the college there that was very sports centric. So we looked at it, and they had one of the first sports management programs where you could major in working in sports. And one of my favorite teams growing up, the Washington Redskins, their general manager at the time was a Springfield College grad, so it kind of drove me that way as well. And I'm like, ooh, I want to do that. I knew I was never going to be a professional football player, but I wanted to be involved in sports. So that's kind of what drove me, towards that profession.
Yeah, it wasn't even a prompted question. It was just cool. So thank you for the share. And it's cool to see you kind of light up about that. I could probably speculate and guess when you were a kid and your dad was your coach. I mean, look at you now. I mean, you're famous. That's why we're talking to you, and I appreciate your time. But even you, when you were a kid, your dad may not have been the most athletic, but he did it. He was there. He was intentional. He was present. How did it make you feel? If you're back in like little Kevin's shoes in the car on the way to the game, you must have felt awesome.
Yeah, I think about that a lot today when I'm coaching my kids of, thinking back to the memories that I have. We don't remember, a majority of our 6-year-old self and things that happen, but those little memories that, like I said, still stick out. I still remember pulling up to those soccer games with him. I don't remember what happened in most of them. I do remember he would sit me to start the game so other parents couldn't complain that he favored me. So
Yeah, well, the
that's still
coach's
stuck in
son,
me.
the coach's son.
Exactly. But you know what? I think of that too now. There's those little things. I'm like, yeah, I want it to be, I'm here helping everyone, but I remember just that my dad was the coach. He was the one who was like, I will do this, and to spend that, to spend that time with them. And I cherish that now with my kids. And, volunteer coaching is not easy at the youth level, and getting involved, a lot of dynamics to deal with, but trying to create those memories of it. It's not always the wins and losses. Sometimes those are good and bad. I have some stories around both things, but I think they all kind of shape us to who we are in some aspects. But having my dad part of that was, again, I can still vividly picture right now, some of those moments with, being on the soccer field and being, the car rides, things like that. Those are the things that you remember.
So thank you for sharing. You just literally hit the whole data up, community, the movement, the whole thing right on the head. I couldn't agree anymore. So your dad was present, but we call it attentively present. He was there. It's not necessarily all the money he spent on you, or maybe all the Christmases and the Red Ryder BB gun and just all that stuff. He was there, and you have all those memories, and the memories live on. I mean, you look like a young guy, but you're talking a couple decades later naturally. So it's super cool. Same thing with me, with my kids, with my little girls. I have found, just like you, it's the moments when I'm on the soccer field and I'm like, and it's difficult. Like, sometimes they put your kid in goalie. And Kevin, I'm not a big fan of when the kid goes in goalie because, either my youngest, the team she's on is like, they're destroyers. They just crush. And she sits there kind of picking daisies. But the second she looks over and I'm not paying attention because she's in goalie and she's not really playing, she remembers that stuff. But I can tell you, for me and for my kids, to your point, that as they get older, they will remember all those cool moments. So, thank you for the share. So my dad, same thing. I light up about my dad. But my dad, we played sports. We have, believe it or not, I'm 6'3", 250 to 320, depending on the jet tailgates and the Bubba Burgers. True story. But we played tennis growing up, believe it or not. Big tennis family. Great memories with my dad. But some of the best memories as well is with my stepdad. Similar to your dad, my stepdad. So again, now I'm 6'3", 265. My brother is 6'3", probably 230, 240. Football guys, baseball guys. My stepfather came into our life in our early teens, 10, 11, 12. He's Italian. He can cook. Amazing cook. He gardens. He's great at music. He's just a cool dude. Great voice, piano. So it was, and he had 2 daughters. So it was a little bit of culture shock, when he met, me and my brother. So, there's a story, Italian guys love to cook. They make, spaghetti and cutlets, right? So he makes the cutlets. Now at that point, I don't have to tell you, I mean, kid, like boys, 10, 11, 12, 13, they're growing, they're eating. They can go to McDonald's and, 20 nuggets is an appetizer. So he makes this pound and a half of cutlets, puts it on the table. I think he went back to check on the pasta. Me and my brother ate the whole thing. We're like, that was an appetizer, right? He freaks out, makes it such a big deal. But he kind of came into this like culture shock of what it's like to be like these big boys. But I will tell you, the best moments. He didn't know much about football when I played in high school. He went to every single game. He was always early. I remember coming, like the football, you come out and like he was always there to high five. I think sometimes I high fived him. I think I took him to the ground with me, a little aggressive. He made so many jokes. It's so funny because he knew like this. It was new to him. He was a soccer guy. He said, third down. I mean, not this is embarrassing, Kevin, at 16 or 17. Third down, punt it. Punt it. They'll never know. Punt it. So it's like he kind of did that like as a little zinger. He's got a good personality. But the point is, it's just the best thing when you look back. And as you get older, it's those memories. It's not the Christmases and the gifts and the things sometimes parents stress over. It's just those cool, unique memories. So just like you, I kind of light up with my dad and actually my stepdad as well. So thank you for the share.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is those things. It's that. It's the yeah, I think of that too. I mean, it kills me when I can't make some of their stuff, or we have two games at the same time. I have a 13-year-old daughter and 10-year-old son, and sometimes we got two sports at the same time in two different towns. I got to pick one, so it's tough. It's tough in that sense too. But
do you think that how would you describe your 13-year-old daughter, 10-year-old son? Are they different, very similar? How do you describe their personalities?
That's a good one. I think they're pretty similar. And they're,
like, is it easier to not see one of their games, or one really needles you, gives you the guilt?
No, I think I've been more, obviously, because she's older. I started the girls lacrosse program in my town with my daughter. So I've been more heavily involved with her for a while, her sports. But now I've, a couple of years ago started coaching my son's soccer team as well, and trying to do that because I miss, some of his lacrosse stuff when he plays, because I'm very involved with hers. So they're both pretty good about it, that they know they're both doing things, and we try to be there for everything, and I try to balance it out, maybe just for my own, probably more for my own sake than theirs, that I make sure that I'm at a little bit of both, but because I want to see both too. So it's part of that,
of course,
part of that as well.
But it's hard. I mean, running a youth sports organization means many moving parts: coaches, parents, players, volunteers. So what lessons about leadership and consistency have stood out for you? So, for instance, are there habits you encourage in teams that might also apply to fathers building a legacy at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think in today's youth sports landscape where, it's pretty crazy, and the fact that people take taking the results too serious at too young of an age, for these kids. And what I try to instill in Mass Youth Lacrosse, we have over 21,000 boys and girls who play in our league across the state. And, we have 5,000 games each spring. 99% of them go well. We probably have, one or two every weekend where some parents, usually the parents, go off the rails at, a third, fourth grade game, things like that. And just trying to instill and it's crazy. The stories that's a whole nother podcast of stories from it. But trying to instill in these parents of just remember what we're trying to do. We're trying to teach these kids life lessons. We're trying to teach them perspective on things. We're trying to teach them that how to be resilient. Winning at all costs is not even that good for kids. Losing's okay. Learning to lose is good. Learning to bounce back is really good, with it. And also remembering, yes, we all want to be competitive and try to win. But at the end of the day, I say it all the time. When I started the girls lacrosse program in my town with my daughter, everyone was brand new to it. We lost every game that first year. Obviously, I was not that great of a coach, but we lost every single game because none of my girls had played. And
you're an expansion team that year, right? You were an expansion team.
Exactly. But now that was first grade. My daughter's in eighth grade now. If you ask her, hey, how many games did we win win or lose? What was our record that first year? She probably actually wouldn't even be able to tell you. She might think, I think we may have won one. I don't know. But if you ask her, hey, how many times did we go out for ice cream afterwards? She'll tell you 2. We went to this one this time, that one this time. This is what I got. So-and-so was with us. The memories that, that the kids remember. And that's what it's all about. And how do you, building that camaraderie, community. We're big about that. How sports can bring, create community with all these kids playing club and picking the best 2 kids from 6 different towns for super teams. No, when my girls come together, I use it pregame. When we're at home, I'm like, this is Stoughton. This is our field. To play with some pride that you're playing in your town on your field, and this is who we are. that's our neighbor. They're our rivals. We're going to compete. We'll shake hands after, but let's play with some pride that this is our town, and those are the things I think we can, we try to instill and get people to think about.
Yeah, so to your point on, we'll call them spicy parents, right? So same thing, my goddaughter, my niece, my kids are fourth and second grade, so my niece second grade, let alone they were playing soccer, Kaylee, behind a church nonetheless. So what happens, you're second grade, like the whole like 5-on-5, there's no goalie, it's just like bing, bing, bing. Yep. So I guess one of the girls on my goddaughter's team was a little handsy to the ponytail of the other player. There was a dad. I've never seen a human being run a 30-yard dash as fast as he did. He ran to the field, and there was probably collectively in the back of the church, probably like 6 or 8 games going on, probably, 300 people. He started screaming and using the F word. Now, granted, I'm a big guy. I'm a Jet fan, which means, sometimes I'm not proud to say, there's some stuff coming out of my mouth, right? I'm sure you empathize. I've never once cursed in front of my girls. I believe very strong on that. I think it's kind of like in society becoming like trendy to curse. I don't like it at all. My kids are not allowed to curse. He literally, Kevin, he bolts over and he starts dropping the F-bomb. That girl, she's pulling my effing daughter's hair. Get her the F, screaming. It was like pin drop silent. It was one of the grossest moments I've ever seen on a sport field. So to your point and what you brought up, we all know, listen, you don't have to read the psychology books to know how you act as a dad. Your kids monkey see, monkey do. You're their person, their safe place, especially if you're a dad. We have a lot of fiduciary responsibility in that role. Something is missing there. So if you could tell every dad right now in the world, around this convo, one thing on how important what they do and how they act, that their kids are watching every second, what would you say?
Yeah, I think it's to that and to what I said earlier, those moments and memories that kids remember, like you just remembered that kid's going to remember that moment for the rest of her life. Not exactly all the context around it, but that her dad went berserk at a game. Now, how much is that going to impact her or not? I don't, to be seen. I say that to her coaches
too. Is she
sometimes.
Dropping out of college? Is she going to
right.
You don't know. Right. Yeah.
No, but there's going to be some impact on hey, that's what I remember. And it might not be that negative to her, but it might be negative in how she grows up and interacts with others anytime something happens that's not exactly right. How do we deal with those things? And she's going to remember her dad. When that happens, someone should come and start, throw a tantrum with it. I tell our coaches all the time, don't be the next one on the 6 o'clock news, because everyone's got a phone these days and is going to record if you're throwing a tantrum at your kid's third grade game. And those things are going to last now forever in those moments. So it's again, we're creating these memories for these kids. And as parents, I know it. I have kids whose parents are constantly yelling from the sidelines, and you see how it impacts them in the games. We call it almost turtling. They kind of just start to cover and don't want to, you can hear them saying to themselves, "Stop, Dad, stop yelling."
Yeah.
That type of thing. And how we can be more supportive versus, let the game happen. It's, we deal with it. Referees is another big one of people questioning, yelling at referees, the kids more nowadays. I almost lose it on not my personal kids, but on my team. You don't yell at the ref. You don't talk back to the ref at all if you're on my team. Yes, they're going to miss a call. It's going to happen. We deal with it. Are they going to call a game away that we don't like? Guess what? We're going to adapt and learn and play to that, in a positive way, and learning how to deal with those things. And that's what I try to teach my kids. After I've had many games with my kids afterwards. So the ref blew it. That's why we lost. Okay, well, what are you going to do better next time? How can you learn from that for next time to be better? That's going to happen in life. Things are going to happen where a boss, a coworker, someone who has influence over something is going to make a wrong decision, wrong call, and you got to learn how to deal with it. Not go complain to someone else about it. So yeah. It's those types of things that's what I try to, again, definitely my teens, but 100% my kids of no questioning the ref right there on the spot. That's part of it. That's what we're doing, and how do we learn from those challenges, those mistakes, and understand too at the end of it that if they did, okay, we watch a lot of professional sports in my house. My son, when he talks about the refs at his games, I'm like, Jack, remember that football game last weekend? That ref who made a horrible call? They do it in the pros, and those guys are getting paid millions of dollars. And,
yeah.
So it's going to happen.
you can't control what happens. You can control how you react to it. So I feel, on the data upside, we're very big into the daily data. Success is basically doing something every day to show up, be intentional, and kind of deposit into, like we call it, like the dad bank. So it's the same thing. All those deposits, like when those dads are doing that on the sideline and from the stands, it's just a deposit in the wrong bank. And maybe to your point,
Yeah.
one bad day, two bad deposits, it's not going to completely derail your kid, but it just eventually over time, so it's just awareness. That's why I'm just very passionate about this. I just think it's sometimes to slow down these dads, shake them a little bit and be like, dude, you're really important here. You don't just make the money, like your presence, how you act. It's really important, and that's why I'm super passionate about it. But Mass Youth Lacrosse, so it's expanding and reaching more kids, including girls programs and underserved communities. So how does father involvement show up in your community mission?
Yeah, I think, some of what we've been talking about, but being involved, being there, supporting what our kids are doing. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be the coach all the time. I have a problem saying no, so I coach way too many teams, but it's how can you support your kids and what they're doing? Like you said, sometimes it's just showing up. Sometimes when you're someone's job and time wise of these things makes it challenging. When every once in a while you got to go way out of your way and you show up at your kid's game when they didn't think you were going to be there. Oh, that smile's awesome. When they see you and like know that they know you made that extra effort when it's not always easy to be there, or you can get involved in other aspects of the team. I always ask a family of my teams to coordinate our end of the season barbecue. Do something to get involved. You don't realize. I think not all parents realize how much the kids just appreciate that their parents are involved. Versus just being there on the sidelines or coming to games, which obviously is number one. Show up when you can. It's not easy these days. My kid's soccer game yesterday was at 5 o'clock, 3 minutes from where we live. Now, I have a flexible enough job where I could get there, but I'm like, yeah, a lot of these parents, they're like, I work till 5. How am I going to get home and get my kid there by 5? So sometimes it's challenging, but when they can, to be there. And that's why I also think it's when we're there, it's how to support them. They know when they make mistakes. These kids, when they're out there, they know their friends are telling them most of the time, ragging on them. Oh, you missed that. You didn't pass it to me. How did you miss that shot? All those things. We don't need to tell them what they did wrong. We just need to tell them that my favorite line, stealing from a friend of mine who has a website on, is, I love to watch you play. I try to say that to my kids,
Yeah.
at least once a week, that, hey, at the end of the day, I just love to watch you play. And
Yeah, it's
that's
the
the
same for me.
support. Yeah.
I heard the something cool once where I don't remember. I'm a movie guy. I think it was in a movie, but it was basically you start like with your 13-year-old daughter and your 10-year-old son. You're on the field, right? So football analogy, like you're in the huddle, you're on the field playing with them. Eventually, you're on the sideline, still watching, still there. Now you're on the sideline. Then you kind of get into the stands. So you're there, you're not on the sideline, you're at the game in the stands. Then eventually you're not even in the stadium anymore. So, to your point, I feel like the biggest blessing in the world is the opportunity to go and watch your kids, and then they're in it. And I feel like sometimes maybe that gets lost with maybe some of your internal things. Like I was once a kid. I once played football. I was so hard on myself, so I'm kind of taking that on my daughters, which I don't. I probably do the opposite. I definitely grew up in a very competitive household. It's like, how much do you weigh? How did you do at school? So I feel like some of that pressure, I don't know if it was all the best, so I'm doing a bit of a course correction. You have 21,000 kids. So is there, and this might be a tough question, is there one, like right away, maybe tip of the tongue, specific moment that really touched you, whether it was a kid, a certain type of kid? We asked someone actually a similar question. They had someone that was actually a juvenile delinquent that actually showed up, kind of did a course correction and became very hyper present around scouting. Super cool. That was his story. So anything for you, could be anything where like one of these kids had a really cool moment and then like the dad was kind of there and it just like got to you.
Yeah, I actually, yeah, I mean, I have a few. I'm trying to think of a best one, but I know one. I was in my town. There's a girl who is a young girl who's dealing with battling with brain cancer right now, actually, but
Wow.
she's playing lacrosse and she wants to play and just wants to be with her friends, and we're doing everything we can to make that kind of normal for her. And last year she's on one of the younger teams. I got in there early, was on the side and happened to be standing next to her dad. And all of a sudden I look out, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, who's in playing goalie right now? And he goes, oh yeah. I'm like, she's crazy. And he's like, oh no, she's fearless and crazy. And she made a save, and he was so excited, and I was just like, and afterwards he went up, after the game, went right over to her, gave her a big hug, and I was, and I could see her looking at her dad, and was just so in that moment of, now I still believe, I'm even trying to remember, I'm pretty sure they lost the game. Did not matter.
Who
Didn't
cares?
matter to her at that moment. Didn't matter to him at that moment. Obviously, their personal situation very different. Very challenging and different. But for her to do that and look over and see her dad there, and I just happened to be standing right next to him, was awesome.
Yeah,
And
that's like the Rudy moment, man.
yeah, it's those little moments that that happen. I mean, I've seen so many kids score their first goal, and what's the first thing they do is turn and look to their parents, and sometimes
Yeah.
run right over to their parents. I've seen that where the dad was coaching the other team, and the his daughter ran right up to him to give him a hug, and those are the kind of the fun moments, obviously, of what we're doing, and being involved and being there.
Thank you for the share. That was an amazing memory. So let me ask you about you. So if your kids or players you coach ask what you stand for, Coach Barney, what would you hope they'd say?
Yeah, I think what I stand for is competing, working hard, and enjoying the competition, enjoying the learning. I love the sport of lacrosse. I think it's a very unique sport in its heritage from the Native Americans, and what we've learned from it and what it can provide to people. It's provided a lot to me, and it's and creating that community aspect. So like, my kids know, like, I probably say it too much. I'm like, hey, I don't care what the final score was. How did we do? Did we compete? Did we work hard? Did we make our teammates better? Are we having fun? Do you want to play next week? That's my mantra of it. Whether in third, fourth, fifth grade, my daughter's now in eighth grade, it's getting that, obviously more competitive, and yeah, wanting to make sure we're getting better to put ourselves in a better position to win, but that we're what are we getting out of it each time we practice or play in those aspects. That's what I try to instill for my kids, and I would hope they would say, yep, that's what my dad cares most about. That
You
I'm
think they
working
think
hard.
you're a big teddy
I'm
bear,
competing.
man? You think you're a big teddy bear to your kids?
I don't know. No, I don't think so, because they know. I say that I'm very competitive. I hate to lose. They know that. They know I hate to lose, but I think I just try to balance that of, when is that important and not. That's
Yeah.
hard. It's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy for me. I'm not perfect by any means with it. I've had games. I tell our coaches, and I've had those games. It's at the end of a game, and ooh, who's going to get the ball, and oh, I should give it to our best player, or should I give it to the player who's never had a chance to make that big moment? And I haven't always done it right, but I try to catch myself at times remembering, okay, this is fourth grade lacrosse in town. There's no championships. Let's let someone else have a chance this time. And if we lose, we lose. And if they win, that's going to be huge. That
Yeah.
moment for that kid.
I'm putting words in your mouth, and I think I know the answer. I'd probably speculate losing to you, it's not the score. Losing to you is not trying, not giving it your all, getting knocked down and staying down, right? It's not failure, it's not getting knocked down, it's never getting
Not
back
good.
up. And like all the startup companies, and you don't talk about the 10,000 times they failed. Or, I mean, listen, unfortunately, I have to say the Patriots and the Falcons. And I, at that game as a Jet fan, was rooting for the Falcons, although he's the GOAT. And there was what, like negative 8,472% chance they come back. The owner, right, of the Falcons goes down to the field. Couldn't be worse for them. And what happens? Because, that's a culture that breeds the concept that losing, there's a different way to look at losing. And I would speculate you feel probably the same, that you're competitive, but in your head, it's not necessarily the outcome. It's, did I give it my all at that very moment?
100%. That's how yeah, thank you. You nailed it. That's yeah. I know a great example. Last week, my son's soccer team, we played the top team, and we kind of knew going in, like, we don't have, but I talked about it with my son. Actually, I remember going over like, hey, they should win. So guess what? We can play with that kind of freestyle of it, but for us to win, we got to, be nearly perfect, which just means playing hard every single second. It's going to take a couple bounces and breaks too. and we got to play hard and do, make everything a little bit better, concentration, working hard, da da da. We lost 5-0. But I was so proud of those kids after the game because exactly that. I was like, I was basically hugging them all. I'm like, that was awesome. You guys did exactly what we said. We didn't get a single bounce and they were better than us, But we played hard. We played so much better than we have, all season, and like that's a win for me. So and it's tough for kids to put that in perspective. My own son very disappointed afterwards, trying to teach that moment on the spot. Not easy. I don't try to over teach it on the spot. I just try to remind them
May
and
not
then
be well received at that moment.
let it sit for a week. And then I talked to him like this week, going to our game last night. Was talking, remember last week? Yeah. Remember how hard you guys played? And that was, that's gonna win us games. And then you can kind of see okay, I get what you're saying now. Yeah, in the moment, what are you talking about, Dad? We got our butts kicked. Stop telling me I did a good job. I get that. I see that in his face sometimes when they lose, and I'm like, no, you did great though. And he's like, shut up, we lost. I don't care. But 2 weeks, a week later, a month later, the next season, he's not going to care that they lost that game. He's going to remember, yeah, I remember we bounced back. We started playing we got better last season. That's that's what we're trying to instill in how to be there for our kids and remind them and find those moments to teach them. I'll give one kind of last one because it just reminded me of it with him 2 years ago now. In their playoffs, he was a goalie. My kids both play goalie too. Oh, it's awful. A goalie parent's the worst.
Yeah, stressed out.
Yeah, and it's everything's on them. It's not, but it feels like it. He had a horrible game, and a playoff game, semifinals. Our team didn't play well too, but he had one of those, an easy shot on the ground and went down and just kind of lifted his head up, and it literally went right between his legs accidentally. The next one rolled right up, a bouncing one, bounced right up.
Yeah.
Yeah, right up his shoulder into the goal. The next one, where I'm just sitting there. I wasn't coaching this one, but I'm sitting there with all the parents, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, oh Jack," and they knew it wasn't his fault. And all I remember, and I'll remember this forever. I don't know if he will, but after the game, I just walked straight towards him, and I knew he was going to be balling, and just gave him the biggest hug I could. Didn't say a word. I'm like, he just needs someone to hug him, right now. I don't need to tell him it's okay, and he did fine because he had a bad game. Now we joke about it. I bring it up every once in a while. I'm like, remember that game? You don't make that mistake anymore, do you? And he's like, nope, never letting that easy one go between my legs again because of that. But it's in those moments of the wins and the losses. How are we there for them? And again, some of those tough losses like that, I was just like, just going to give him a hug and tell him I love him. And that's it. And then let him decide what he wants to say and talk about, We'll go for ice cream. That usually cures a lot when they're little.
Yeah. Well, listen, Kevin, it's cool to hear, man. You sound like such a great dad. So, same thing for me. I thought of like when I was a kid, we did the Williams sport, baseball, which is so wildly competitive. I think I probably burnt out on sports because we were so competitive so early on. But with my older daughter, it's very similar to me. My younger daughter, she's like aggressive. Like she's the one in soccer pushing, and like I love it. She's got the killer instinct. My older daughter's like me, a little bit of an empath, huge heart. And what I learned from when I was a kid was when I think back of me playing, I feel like there was so much pressure and stress. And I don't know, Kevin, if I enjoyed every moment. So when I tell her, that's what I lean in. Similar to that, the other dad, what he says, I say, look, we come here for you to have fun. Whatever happens, to your point, though, give it your all. I want to see you. We always say fly around. I want to see you flying around, no walking, hustle, like give it your all. Whatever happens and you do your best, like we're here for you to have fun. If you're not going to have fun, we really shouldn't come because that's the point of what we do. Tonight, for instance, she has the Frozen play. So I'm not going to lie, I'm a large guy. I may or may not have worn the Elsa wig in my, last several years with her. So it's come to tonight. But, same thing. She gets very stressed, kind of overthinks. And I'm like, look, we're coming tonight, the family, to see you in this play because it's for you to have fun. If you're not going to have fun, and I feel like that's helped her a bit. I do wish maybe when I was little, I had someone that told me that, like, hey, little Drew, like, you're supposed to have fun doing this. I think that would have been kind of cool. I was definitely the type of guy who, after stuff, didn't speak very much. I actually stopped. When we lost, I think I went days without speaking. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, I lost you for a minute. Sorry.
For a second. We're back. Yeah. When I was little, I used to lose. I don't know why my parents didn't think I had some kind of mental problems, but like I didn't talk for days. Like I would take it so hard. And you're freezing. We're freezing. You're good? You're back?
I'm back. I can hear you. I definitely dropped out for a second. Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
So when I was little, for sure, I don't know why my parents thought it was okay that after baseball, 10, 11, 12 years old, that I didn't speak very much after I lost. And it would have been, I mean, listen, you sound like a great dad. It would have been cool. Hey, did you have fun? That's all that matters. I would take it so personal. So I just felt like for my oldest, I've kind of seen that, the lose and being very quiet. So I feel like the introduction of like, we're here to have fun, make sure you have fun and fly around. Well, I could say that that's kind of helped for me, but I feel like every kid in the world has to understand, especially if they're young. It's difficult when dad had his own childhood and has his own stuff kind of going on. But ultimately, if the kid has fun and flies around, that's my personal thing. So that's what if you ask my kids to the point, Kevin, of, hey, your dad, showing up, sports, like, oh, I think they would say, we love when daddy comes. Like, he always tells us just to have fun. I just think, it's a shame sometimes the amount of pressure we put on our kids for reasons that may not be appropriate. But so our next part is the fun flex fire segment. So all it's going to be, Kevin, just going to ask you some rapid fire questions, big results. So what's one habit you see in dads who consistently show up?
I think it's just the love for their kids. And again, I think from what I said before, just love watching them do whatever it might be, play sports, act, just love seeing their kids be active.
Lead with love. So complete this sentence. Legacy is
the lasting memories you create.
What's one myth about youth sports or fatherhood you wish could fade away?
Boy, I think it's, actually it's both sides. It's the all about winning, and now it's more the participation trophy. Everything's a participation trophy. No, it's not. It's, that needs to go away, and it's what we're trying to teach the kids in the long term.
What's your favorite coaching phrase you use with players or kids?
I think it's compete. Let's compete. That's my go-to. As long as we're doing that, we'll be good.
If you had to build a dad league team of famous actors, what's one male actor you'd want on your lacrosse team?
Oh, my lacrosse team. I mean, I was going to go Kevin Costner. All those baseball movies.
If you build it, they will come, baby.
Yeah. That For the Love of the Game. That was another one of my favorites. Not quite as well known. No, I'll take Kevin Costner still. I love it.
Kevin Costner. Last one. So you personally, right? Your son, 10-year-old, is on the field. All of a sudden, maybe you're late. I'm sure you aren't late. You roll up, in your truck, windows down, blasting a song. What's the song?
Welcome to the Jungle. Guns N' Roses. Get fired up.
Yeah. Amazing. Lately I've been doing some really aggressive songs. I don't want to admit here. Yes, I have little girls. Yes, they're 9 and 7. Yes, my older one, Kevin, told me, Daddy, when I was getting a little bit down, that song came in my head and it fired me up. So I don't know if it's bad parenting and appropriate, but it worked. But no, that's a really cool song selection. So yeah. Kevin, thank you for leading the way in youth sports, community building, and father engagement. Your work shows how presence, leadership, and service all fit together in sports and in the home. So I'm going to ask you, I want you to take us away. We're going to drop our Dadarian Creed, and then you're going to take us out. Is that cool?
Got it. Let's go.
All right, here we go. So our Dadarian Creed. I'm a dadder. I don't chase perfect. I chase presence. I lead quiet and confident. I build my family, my foundation, and my legacy. I take reps in patience, discipline, and love, theme of the day. I break old patterns, not promises. Legacy isn't someday, it's today. Kevin, take us out.
Let's dad.
Yeah. Kevin, thank you so much for being a guest. You're an amazing guy, clearly an amazing dad, and I can't wait to get you on again. And thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Until next time, we'll see you then.